Falcon. It was good fun. It was, well, it's, yeah, I've been doing it for a while.
Good morning, guys. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Those of you there? Hey, how are you guys? All right. So, Kevin and I, we do these classes regarding the absentees, and so that's our topic for today. I know we did one a couple of months back as well, but it seems to be the big topic right now with right now with what's going on in the market, between owner occupied and the absentee. I want to make sure I'm okay right here. And so I want to start off with just with the absentee. So absentees, those are pretty much the owner investor who has either rental property. It could be either across the street, different city, different county, even different states. So we always have get questions from other agents as far as like, hey, you know what? I know nobody really touches the absentee as much because right now everybody's pretty much zoned and occupied with owner occupied here locally. Stick to my farm. There's plenty of equity. Everybody's gained equity so much in the last couple of years. And when we do these farms for the agents, sometimes they overlook the absentees. And sometimes, with the absentees, it's a little bit more work, a little bit more labor because they're not just, after every door. And sometimes if you don't do your homework when we give you guys the farm book, whether we email them to you guys, it'd be nice just to, and we can separate those, the owner occupied and then all the absentees. But a good way to remember that is just maybe just either you look at the site address and the mailing address, or you just highlight the like maybe a day before or something, just highlight which ones are the absentees. So when you are knocking on those doors, now you can not only hit the renters, but then you hit the investors, but those you actually have to mail to them. So at that point, that's where we come in, and I brought in some couple of samples here for you guys, and I'll be able to email them to you after, but I'll read them to you in a few minutes. But that's one of the things. So with the absentees, you do your farm, and the only way to reach out to them is to mail to them. And so we have a couple of samples, whether it be like a mail merge type of letter, or we have some of these sample postcards. But a good investor usually runs things through their CPA, their accountant, and we've had a gentleman, Phil Atwan, in the past for 1031 exchanges and so on. And he always talks that, when you're reaching out to these absentees, make sure you run absentees, whether it be, doesn't matter what city, but run them anywhere between 12 and 15 years that they've owned so far. So that way, A, we know they have equity. B, at that time, their CPA or accountant is telling them, hey, it's time for you to leverage and get something out of those properties because you want to maximize your dollars. So what they usually tell them is like, hey, sell that one single family and use that equity and transfer it and do a 1031 exchange and buy 2, 3, 4 units or even another house, like for like properties. And so, and it could be not just here in the state, but it can be in another state. And so when it gets into something like that, because everybody's as they say, what we don't know how many properties they have, what tax bracket they're in, what other properties they may have, and so on. So at that point, we just want to refer you and just say, hey, you know what, you probably want to talk to not just your CPA, your person there, but also talk to someone who does these 1031. For us, we like to refer Phil Atwan, who spoke at your meetings in the past couple of years regarding doing a 1031 exchange, and he can actually mention to them as far as look at each different scenario and see what would be the ideal scenario as far as either if they only have one property to do a 1031 exchange or do multiple properties. They can sell one property and buy 2 properties at that point. And so now they're able to leverage what they have there and utilize their equity and transfer, not touch that. They can't touch that money, but that's the point of doing an exchange where now they can, get rid of some of that not so much of the assets, but transferring, whether they buy 1, 2, or even 3, depending on the volume of it. So they can buy 2, 3 units after they sell their single family, and they have within about 180 days to close a transaction. So let's say you find somebody and they say, hey, yeah, you know what, Julia, I want to sell my property here in Lakewood 90712. I am thinking about doing a 1031 change, and even better if they're out of state. So the thing about the investors with out of state, a lot of times they don't know what's going down there in Southern California. And so they'll be like, I don't know. I hear properties are plummeting now. Well, again, had we had this conversation, 2, 3 months ago, it would have been a different story, just what the owner occupied investors. But now it would be a really ideal time to reach out to, especially those out of state, because they're looking at it as an outside from a different state. It's like, wow, I hear properties are just coming down over there. I might want to take advantage and utilize as much as my equity before it drops again. I mean, I am getting good rents, but I've been here in my investment down there in Lakewood for about 15, 20 years. I have some equity that I can definitely, maybe buy some more properties and buy maybe, let's just say Texas, Colorado, wherever the taxes may be a little bit less, and maybe keep a closer eye on it. Then I don't know what's going on there. I have someone taking care of my rental down there, but I don't want my property value to go down as much, and I have all this equity to gain it there and transfer it. So ideal situation right now is even just to reach out to those that are out of state absentees. And again, there's a couple of different market pieces that we have, but when they do sell those absentees, they got to identify a property within 45 days and then close within 180 days. They have 6 months after that to close the transaction. Otherwise, that window is out the door. And so again, that's one of the things of the beauty of the absentees. You want to try to get some of those, especially the ones that are out of state. I think right now in the situation that we're in, the current market status, you want to reach out more to the out of state. But right now agents are calling us like, hey, I want a farm book with just absentee only, no matter if it's in state or out of state. I want to be able to hit them all. And then obviously there's a specific marketing piece that goes out to the out of state versus the in state. And it's just, a matter of just talking to them and say, hey, you know what, I noticed your property in Lakewood 90712, blah, 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 versus, I've noticed your property there. But either way, there's a couple of different ways that you can word it, but we do have some samples here that I'm going to email you guys, and you guys already have these right now. And so just want to know, just you three, have you guys worked any of the absentees, or at least maybe call them up if you're calling them up or anything like that? No, not at this time. Okay. And so the other thing is we have vendors that we work with, and those are actually the paid leads that, we don't handle anything. We just kind of really refer you to these absentees where you can reach out to them and they can give you, whether it's a phone number to that investor, the absentee, and it doesn't matter whether they're here in state or out of state, but they'll be able to give you, and that's a paid lead service, not through us, but that's something that they'll be able to provide. And so that's the absentees out of state. So there's my business partner, Kevin. So I'm talking to them about, and we're on Zoom right now. And so I was talking to them about out of state absentees versus in state. And I was about to get into some of the marketing pieces, but if you want to chime in on a few other things.
Well, here's the good news.
So here's my business partner, Kevin, and you're like right here.
Watching.
You gotta be right here. I think.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, so a couple things. Statistically, absentees are the fastest growing in Southern California. So if we're looking at a farm from now till February, this is the one to do. Here are the simple talking points. Okay, what we've done is we created a group of postcards that are just meant to call attention to the annoying things about being a landlord. You need a change, you're having issues with plumbing issues, tired of being a landlord, with prices at historic levels. So again, these are intended to, what we've realized is society and the consumer, we're not sure how they like to communicate, right? Everybody likes to communicate differently. So we start with these So you send the first one, then we give you the corresponding cell phone numbers. You call them, you just say, hey, this is Julia. Just want to be sure you got my postcard. Do you have any questions? And then we also furnish you with the email addresses for those individuals. So it's just a three-pronged thing, right? This goes out, 7 days later you call, then you would say, I do have additional information about. It could be 1031 exchanges. All of this information
I was just mentioning fill out form.
comes from my 1031 guy. And they're only going to do one of two things, right? If it's been an investment property, single family residence for a while, then in all probability, they're not going to cash it out. They're going to do a 1031 where the cash flow is going to be better, right? Because there's only three things people are looking for in investment properties, right? One, they're looking for security. So appreciation, long-term appreciation. And we can take those groups and say, I want everybody that has that's an absentee owner that's been there 15 years, okay? Because now their security and equity position are exactly what they want, right? So that box has been checked. So then the conversation with them is you've taken all your depreciation and what's your income from the property looking like, right? Statistically, absentee owners buy their first property around 40, 15 years, you're 55. Trust me, the white-haired man, you slow down over 55 and hassle becomes the biggest thing you want to avoid. So the conversation with those people, because they already have their security, they've already got their equity, is have you thought about either selling this and moving into other states where the cash flow is a little better, right? And the good news there is you'll get this sale, but you'll also get all the referrals for doing nothing except referring it to whatever state they're going to, right? Second is they want cash flow. Most people in Southern California are not getting the cash flow that they could in other states, right? And now everybody's heard about it. Before it was like a realtor secret. Now anybody with the internet can figure out that you can sell a condo in Huntington and buy 3 houses in Bellingham, Washington. And okay, that's a perfect example. My sister and brother-in-law did this. And let me tell you, that condo in Huntington was a piece of poo. Like I would never have lived in that thing. But they got to buy 3 houses in Bellingham. So there they had a 500 positive in Huntington, and they wound up with $6,000 a month positive in Bellingham. And they paid cash for all the houses.
Wow.
So it did it's appreciable, right? It's not a couple $100. It's changes your financial future, right?
Wow.
So here are some talking points, and we're making these into flyers as well about just kind of how easy it is to do a 1031 exchange. And what we have to remember is in our industry, and it tends to be run by legislation, right? Every time there's new legislation, that's a opportunity, good or bad, for us. Change upsets people, and taxation really upsets people. And we have both in California currently and have had it for a while. So that's kind of my message. We make sure that you are familiar. You know, I can send these to everybody. It's kind of just a packet of familiarize yourself with a few little terms on the 1031 thing, and then let us do our job, right? You sell the 1031 potential. Phil Atwan, who I know has spoken here numerous times, he will talk directly to your seller. Smartest thing ever. You literally say, I know there's specific questions about how the money gets moved and how all that works. I'm gonna hook you up with my guy at 1031. He was on a call with people for 50 minutes the other day. And he walked them through, and all the family members were there, and it was a trust situation. He's just great at this. So don't think you need to know everything about 1031s other than the talking points that are in this packet. Just get to what they need. Do they want security? Do they want appreciation? Or do they want income? And how long do they want that? Is it okay when you're in your 40s to just make an extra $300-400 a month on your property, and then when you hit 55 or 61, I want my money, right? I want it on a monthly basis. I don't need, my daughter's gonna be 5. She doesn't need my money. Hopefully. So, overall, that's the pitch. There, a couple little reminders on this series of marketing. To get the cheapest rate for out the door, you must have 210 or more in the same zip code. So when you ask us for absentees, give me a zip code. And if you have a specific property within that zip code, that's even better, because what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a centroid search. So we're going to take the property you gave me as the center, and then we're going to go out till we get to about 225, 250, all in the same zip code, all have had absentee properties for 15 years or more. Because we know that they've maxed out their depreciation and they've maxed out their the kind of duration of the appreciation portion. The good news now is this property is, nobody's losing value, but they're a lot of investors sat there watched during COVID going, ching, this is going up 100,000 every month, we're good. Now that it's only going up 20,000 a year, maybe it is a plateau, and maybe it is time for them to diversify their portfolio. And that's really your message. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. You use these talking points, you follow up just like we talked, and we'll prompt you. Our job, Maria's already said this, we've said it 1,000 times in our 30 years together. We can't give each other title orders. So the only way we get paid is you guys sell a house. And if we can make you do that faster, then that's better for everybody. So that's kind of why we lay this out the way it is, right? The cards are done. So basically you give me a zip code, we come up with that database. This lady that does these cards, one-stop shop. She only does real estate printing. I've already negotiated best price. She rocks. And she just drops her stuff in here. She changes whatever colors, all the obviously Keller Williams logos are already in there. And then she handles the mailing and the postage and the whole thing. She just tells you what the cost is. And it's been negotiated down. As long as you stay over that 210, the zip code, you qualify for bulk rate mail, which is the big deal. I don't advocate mailers where half the price of it is postage. Unless, and again, here we come down to messages, right? The message needs to be really brief. We are a soundbite society. So card is a soundbite. Phone call is person. Follow up with more extensive information, like some of these things, or things that explain Prop 19 that take more reading. All of that stuff is then the follow up, and then you bring in another talking point, follow up phone call, and then more extensive about that phone call and what topics. And really, that's it. A card should go out twice a month. So again, I don't say 1st and 15th because that's when people's bills come, even people get bills to mail anymore. So basically it's, every, so go the 10th and the 20th, but Melissa handles all that. Questions? Yes.
You said use the same zip code, but aren't the mailers going to a different area because these are absentee owners?
No, so the absentee owner properties all need to be the same. So yes, technically, even though the addresses are all over the country, you're still going to get both there for some reason.
Okay.
Somehow figured it out.
Okay.
Trust me, that was my thing. I was like, but they're going to North Carolina. Somehow there's some dispensation for that with the post office.
Perfect.
It didn't make sense either. What else? Oh, emerging market guys, condominiums. So I don't know how familiar you are with, I call it the Miami law. It's when that building kind of imploded in Miami, right? The condo, the big thing. Well, so now there's a law already in place in Fresno. Wow,
Fresno.
that's where I'm from. Wow. Sorry, that was a Freudian something. There's already a law in California that if the condo complex was built prior to 91, 3 stories or more, balconies and stairwells, they have been doing it since January of this year. If it was a Fannie or a Freddie deal, they have been doing a physical inspection of that condo to check for some of these items that were brought up in this national law. Okay. Starting in January, the complexes that qualify under those parameters are supposed to, it's going to be part of every transaction that the inspection be done. We're not sure if the whole complex is going to have to be retrofitted or what's happening, right? But the good news, and again, like I said with legislation, there's a good side and there's a bad side, right? It sucks. It's going to be a pain in the butt. But it's a great opportunity to talk to absentees, right? That own condos. They're not as invested. They're absentees. And it would be best if they were to liquidate their condominium and move it into either single family or out of state before there's all of this HOA stuff, right? Before they have to determine as an HOA, are they going to have to retrofit the whole complex, and does that cost $15,000 a unit? It's the fear of pain, right? So we want to be sure that we don't create a panic, but we create awareness. This law is rolling out. So
You got a flyer on that?
yeah, they're doing it right now. So I'll get my flyer tomorrow night. I just went through it because, legislative things, you got to be brief and soundbitey, but it has to cover everything, right? So I take the 19 pages and I try to cut it down to, apparent. Which took me a long time this weekend, actually. It really much more time consuming than you would think. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. But again, I think there's great opportunities. If you look at the absentee condos, if you look at people that have been there more than 15 years, if you choose, we can even run people that own 3 or more investment properties in the same zip code. So that conversation with a direct phone call is, hey, Kevin, you own 3 different properties in Lakewood. Have you thought about diversification? Or are you just cool with is everybody great with that? Okay, I just check it. Because diversification is kind of how we should be looking at this in the future. That's it. Nobody's trying to, that's the other thing I think that's happened is the consumer expects a different type of approach. They expect you to be Amazon. They expect you to know who they are, know what they own, and how long they've had it in their equity position. And I'm going to be honest, that's your guys' job. So if you don't know that when you pick up the phone or when you send them something, I'm going to do a little shame on you thing, right? Because they're not looking, they think they can sell their own house. Everybody's been on Redfin in the last 3 years and they know they can sell their own house, right? But they need the consulting situation. They need to be able to be hooked up with the CPA guy. They need to be able to access your 1031 person. They need those services because the great thing about California is the purchase contract continues to get more and more complicated, which throws people more and more to us, right? Back in the day, I would have a neighbor come over 20 years ago. Well, I'm just going to sell it myself. And I'd be like, okay, well, it's a 4-page form and escrow, give it to you, whatever. Now I'm like, don't do it. There's so many, there's just so many things. I think questions.
Just are people more, what's the word, willing to invest out of state? Because a lot of people aren't. I mean, I know people do, but I think the majority of people, they don't want to, they want to be an hour away or they want to be in the same state.
Well, and there's great opportunities for that. Okay. And it's funny, I guess it's not ironic that I brought up Fresno. It's just like moving your assets to Bellingham, Washington. You can get a 5-unit building for about $400,000. It's going to pay every month, whether they're Section 8 or not, because, Central California, I think the last stats were 52% of everyone in Fresno County is on public assistance. So that's a lot of Section 8 people, guys. And that only gets bigger. So you don't have to leave California. You know, you can sell your Southern California gem and get lots in Central California, right? Because everyone thinks they're gems in Southern California. We live in the Great Plains. And so that's kind of what the trend we're seeing. You know, and really the state thing is along political lines.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're seeing too. And I mean, I have no opinion on either way, but very rarely are you going to see a staunch Republican moving to Oregon with their investments, but they're going to move them to Tennessee, they're going to move to Texas, and vice versa. You know, you're not going to see a lot of Democrats taking their money to Tennessee. So we're seeing that more than I've never seen
Oh,
that trend
yeah,
before.
sure.
That's now a thing. Your political
For
belief
sure.
now determines
Yeah.
possibly where your investments are in what states.
But putting politics aside, I still think people are more, I mean, people will move out of state and then people want to be more comfortable where they live. I don't know.
I don't think we're going to continue to see, I think the people that ran from California have run.
They're
As far as
still
their,
running. They're still
their
going.
primary residence.
Yeah.
But when it comes to investments, you know what we're gonna see a big difference? People moving their investments from LA County to Orange. During COVID, it was so clear that rent moratoriums, not here, up your butt here, right? That, we don't do that, it's the OC. Okay, I ran into 4 different people
Oh, wow.
that in the last like month, that all were like, you know, Kev, I'm living in LA, I like my house, but all my investments are in Orange
Wow.
or other counties, San Bernardino, Riverside. You know, Los Angeles is probably the most regulated. You know, we're gonna get rid of the rent moratorium in January, except for city of Los Angeles and all those unincorporated areas, of which there are 27. So it's not just LA, right? Everyone goes, oh, it's just zip code 9 and whatever. No. It's the overlay cities too, right? Which is forcing a lot of people to take their investments from, let's just say, Glendale and move them to Anaheim. So we're seeing that trend. So don't give me a zip code in Orange County because those people are pretty
They're
happy with
happy,
what's
yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
right? And you absolutely
Would that, like,
give me as
help
many as you
qualify?
want.
Let's say there's only like 101 zip code. We give you more zip codes. Will that
We'll
qualify?
always find, there's not one zip code that I've run into that doesn't have
You
these
just
two.
get a couple of them.
Okay.
Even Long Beach, which has like, I don't even know, I think they have like 11 or 15 zip codes, something like that. It's still a city of 650,000 people.
Yeah.
That's what we forget. Like, it's bigger than Portland, Oregon. So even little cities like Stanton, you still come up with 2 things. But I would say, give me a couple zips that, first of all, probably one that you live in, because you're already there, so that's easy. And you know that, you know, the talking points and what you like and don't like. And then somewhere where either you have a past, you've lived there in the past, or you're just familiar with that market, you like this housing. Because really, the zip codes and materials house, it works across the board. These things have been proven, and we tested them for a year, and it worked out. And it's just a plug and play.
Mm.
We just send the data directly to Melissa. She handles your stuff. She does her thing. The phone numbers and emails come to you right off the bat when we first get those numbers, and then there'll just be a gentle nudge from
Yeah, the
me.
follow-up bit's the best.
There would be a little gentle nudge now because we're apparently that is the weakest link in the system. Is people making the phone
You
call.
actually have to do work?
I know.
Oh,
I know. I'm like, the numbers aren't gonna automatically jump into your phone for you. But so you just get a text from me like, dude, do your calls. Like, have a good day. You know, it's kind of one of those things. Because I hate getting those, but I also have to get them.
Are your numbers pre-vetted?
Okay, so this is the great thing. Okay, it's an outside data service that we contract with the design sites.
Okay.
So the numbers are really good. They work backwards. If you have, this is another thing they'll do. Now they'll charge you for this, and there is a charge for the phone numbers and all that. It's 6 cents per phone number and it's 9 cents per year. I look at it, 200 of them is what? $12. You have them forever, pay $12.
I'm not even that.
It's the greatest $12 you're ever gonna spend in real estate. And so, yeah, and we can do everything. They can do NOD phone numbers, even though there are none. We just had them run that in all the Long Beach zip codes.
What's OD?
Notice a default.
Oh,
There's
So
none?
properties that are starting into foreclosure. In all of the Long Beach zip codes and the 7 zip codes in Orange County that I'm responsible for, there were 31 out of, I think it was like 75,000 houses or something. We're not seeing NODs and NOTs that, you know, for that to happen, people have to be upside down. And everybody made the average about $242,000 during COVID in equity, regardless of what county you're in. Which I think also plays to the fact that we're not seeing primary residence people putting their houses on the market. Because they're sitting on a lot of equity and there's no pain, right? You need pain to make people move. So, you know, that's kind of what's happening there. So I say we shift to absentees. They still have the hangover from like people aren't paying. We have COVID restrictions. We've got rent. You know, that hangover is still a little fresh in their minds. Let's capitalize on it and see what we can do. That's my pitch. I appreciate it very
I
much.
think we might have some chats on there, but I don't know how to.
Oh, okay.
And someone's cell phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, just so we can insert there.
And then the next request is gonna be, you know, I want.
Kevin, there's no chats. It's just emails.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay, all right.
Perfect. So we're gonna send the whole series both to you, Hallie, and to the front desk. And so that they can disseminate them out, you know, whoever wants them. And then
Thank
Elise,
you.
to contact her directly will be there.
Use this one.
Yeah.
And again, just remember, we have things that aren't absentee specific. We have advantages of the trust. We have Prop 19. We have, like I said earlier, there's going to be a new one on this new apartment situation going on in January. So, you know, title's title. We're kind of here just to make your life easier, do some of this for you, because it's not really where you should be spending your time. It's where I should be spending mine. So there you go. And then just ask us and we'll get it over to you and we'll try to make it as easy as possible. There you go.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Very cool.
Okay.
Thank you.